Nistgħu qegħdin. Okay, we're live, and we said that the program was going to be in English, but I started in Maltese by mistake. I'm so used to speaking Maltese in politics, but it doesn't matter. So here we are. This is a discussion by the Green Party. In Malta, we're called ADPD. I'll give you a brief history shortly. I'm Ralph Kassar. I'm the Secretary General of the party and also a candidate for the European elections and local elections. Mina Ġaktolu, who is a member of the treasurer of the party, but also a member of the executive committee of the European Green Party, the chairperson Melissa Bagley, and youth and activist in the youth section, Axel Grima. So today, we'll be talking about the European elections and also local elections in Malta from the perspective of our party, of the Green Party. The Green Party was founded in 1989. It was called Alternativa Democratica and also Alternativa Democratica, the Green Party, AD, the acronym AD, the Green Party. It was the first after independence, the first in 1964, the first third party in Malta. As a lot of you may know, the Maltese political scene is quite tribal and polarized and dominated by the nationalists, who are a conservative, a Christian Democratic Party, and by the Labour Party, who are a Labour Socialist Party, Social Democratic Party. Since 1989, the Greens have had various local councillors on and off. The electoral system makes it very difficult for us to penetrate the system. Although it's a single transferable vote system, it is not proportional over the whole country. But we have always had what we call a national quota, so enough votes to get one seat had the system been completely proportional. In fact, at the moment, we're in court in the Constitutional Court to ask the court to declare that every vote should count, should have the same weighting, should count the same as is declared in the Constitution, and we're still waiting for judgment, hopefully in a few months, time. Some more history. In 2020, the Democratic Party was formed. They had an alliance with the Nationalist Party to be on the same list in Malta, electoral list. In Malta, we don't have a party list system or a pre-electoral alliance system. They had elected 2 members of parliament on the Nationalist Party list. One of them is quite known, Marlene Farrugia, and her husband, who came from the Labour Party as well, Godfrey Farrugia. Then things went sour because the Nationalist Party wasn't too happy with having other parties on their list. 2 years ago, the Democratic Party was joined the Green Party to form one party. That's why we are called, on the ballot sheet you will see AD+PD, that refers to Alternativa Democratica, plus the Union, and Partit Democratico. The acronym is ADPD without the plus. In fact, the logo on the ballot sheet you will see ADPD, but then the heading is AD+PD. The color. In Malta, we have a strange rule which says that only parties who present 4 candidates or more candidates on a local council, on a district, or else on a nationally, as in the case of the European Parliament election, there are no districts, just one Malta and goes are one whole district. Only parties with 4 or more candidates can have their logos, names, whatever, printed in color. We are 4 candidates for the European Parliament election, 4 green candidates, and our color is obviously green. It's a small graphic, so it isn't that clear, but you can see what I'm saying, what I'm referring to through this graphic here. Here it is. Okay. As you can see, parties are listed in order of name, alphabetical order of their name. So on top, there's a religious right Christian Conservative Party called DABA. Then in green, ADPD, AD+PD, with our green logo here, and the text is in green. Candidates are listed in alphabetical order according to their surname. And our four candidates are Kassar Ralph, that's me, the Guara Rachel, she's a young artist and activist, a feminist activist. Gauchi Sandra, who's our chairperson and a teacher. And so Tolu Mina Jack, who's here with us. So as you can see, in alphabetical order with a small photo of each candidate. Then we have, then there's the fascist, yeah, a fascist Nazi party called Imperium Europa. Uh, Funnily, it's well, I don't know how they got to choose that name, but anyway, it's a fascist party, Imperium Europa, which means a European empire. Okay, hate mongering party, Partit Laborista, which is the Labour Party, Partit Nazionalista, the Nationalist Christian Democratic Party, and then a list of independent candidates. All of them are men, and all of them, most of them are right-leaning, right wingers, uh,
Very conservative.
and very conservative comedians, and I don't know what.
And the Volt Party.
What?
And the
Yes, yes.
Volt.
I forgot Volt Malta as well. One candidate for Volt Malta. So, AD+PD, the Greens are the longest standing and party, apart from Labour and the Nationalists. How how is the voting system? You put a preference against the name. So on the right-hand side of the ballot sheet, in this case, there are boxes against the name of the candidate in order of preference. So the first candidate that you wish to see elected, you put the number one against their name, and then you can continue from any party with your preferences. One, two, three, four, five. You can cross from one party to the next. Obviously, to make a change in Malta, uh, the best thing is to give one, two, three, four in any order you like on the green candidates. Okay, so if you choose Gauchi, one. Okay, if you choose Taguara next two, Tolu next three, Kassar next four. So, okay, etc. etc. Obviously, if you prefer Kassar first, I have to say this: you put one against one. But uh, and this is the most effective vote. We are a progressive party. We're a green party. We need the boost to send a strong message that you also want to see change in Malta. I think you're all seeing what's happening in Malta with the tribal bickering and the corruption cases and the conservativeness of the parties, especially the Nationalist Party and the other parties. A boost for the Greens will really help us continue our work and in favor of a greener and better Malta, but also a greener and better and more progressive Europe. I don't know, Mina, if you want to add to this, the
I just want to add
I'll,
that
re-
it's
I'll
quite
remove
his,
this for a moment.
historical to see the color green on a ballot sheet for the first time. It's quite exciting for us as well as the Green Party to have our color green on the ballot sheet. We have four candidates that um, I believe between us the average age is late 30s, which I also find very attractive, quite a young list compared to some of the other candidates who are running, and especially the independents. We also have what I call a very gender progressive list, in the fact that not only is 50% of the list women, but we also have myself as a trans and non-binary person on the list. So it's the first time, in fact, that ADPD has presented a list where more than 50% of the candidates are not men, and that is for us as well a sign of the progress we have made as a party to speak as well to people of other genders, particularly women, and to get women involved in the party, which has been a challenge in the past. And part of that is thanks to the fact that we have a female chairperson, and um, so having a female chairperson, and historically in Malta, it's very rare to have a female leader of a political
Yeah, that's true.
party. It's actually really changing the way we do politics. It's not obviously just about the representation of the different genders in the party, but also what we stand for in regards to gender equality and everything else. And so it was quite a shock to see the Labour Party has only two women on its list, and in their manifesto for the European Parliament elections, they do not mention the word gender or women once.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at the manifestos of the other parties, the Conservatives, the Nationalist Party, just issued an eight, is it 8 points?
8 points.
An eight
I,
point leaflet, basically.
it's
Now,
like
I
if,
understand that.
if I were to submit an abstract and call it a thesis.
That's it. That's it. And it's not even a summary of the manifesto. The whole manifesto is just 8 points. And that's
When I challenged David Adjuce about it this morning on Newsbook, he said, "Well, everyone knows what we stand for." So,
okay. Uh,
anyways, I'd rather
anyway,
talk about us.
yeah. And the Labour Party's manifesto, to be honest, isn't much better. I mean, it's barely 6 pages, with lots of waffle and lots of nationalistic waffle. So for maybe the people who haven't been here for long, uh, and maybe they've seen the huge posters, billboards, with a huge Maltese flag. Those aren't billboards from some nationalist right-wing party. Those are billboards from the Labour Party. Surprise, surprise. The Labour Party uh, peddles some quite stale nationalistic rhetoric in Malta, unfortunately. Uh, Axel, Axel is an activist. He lives in the Netherlands at the moment. He's Maltese, lives in the Netherlands. Uh, why, why should we vote green?
Well, from my point of view, I personally first joined the Greens because of a debate that I participated in, and the when we were allowed to submit questions, and luckily my question got chosen to be asked. It was about public transport, and it was a leaders debate. So at the moment, at the time, it was Carmel Cocopardo who was
Yeah,
the leader
that's
of the
right.
ADPD. And from the five leaders that were up there on stage, the only person who actually provided a substantial answer to my question was Carmel Cacopardo. The others were all fluff and some debate about the metro between the Nationalist and the Labour Party. And because of that, I really appreciated this. I had studied a lot of transport economics articles before, because it's one of the fields that I enjoy studying about. And he backed up most of his answers with data from articles that I had read, and I appreciated it a lot. And I started looking more into the ADPD, and I do consider myself a socialist, first and foremost. Um, and once I actually started to get into the manifestos of the other parties and all of the parties that I could find, um, out of all of them, the Green Party was actually more socialistic leaning than the Labour Party itself.
Well, the new left is surely green. I mean, the
Yeah.
old left is, well, I won't go into that, but uh,
And nowadays, when I look at the red and the blue party, I barely even see a distinction.
yeah,
Maybe one is more liberal, slightly more liberal than the other. But in reality, I view them both as quite center right. Um, and since I'm a socialist, it doesn't attract me whatsoever to look into those parties anymore. So apart from a handful of independents that I like, the Green Party I feel has more going for it, and I'm quite an environmentalist myself. So um, this is why I ended up
yeah,
here.
great. Let me,
Um,
incidentally, these are four candidates for the European election. Rachel Degbar on the left, Mina Jaktolu, Ralph Kassar, and Sandra Gauci. The Later on, we'll also speak about the seven candidates we have for local for local for local elections. Mina, on a European level and in the European Parliament, we are the party who are well full members affiliated with the European Green Party. So a vote for the Green Party in Malta also strengthens uh, the Green movement in Europe,
Yeah.
as
Um,
opposed to voting for someone who's not affiliated with anyone and well,
no, I mean, in fact, the way the European Parliament is set up is by political groups that are directly linked to political parties, which can only be formed if you have a number of member parties from EU member states. So, in our case, we are a member of the European Green Party, one of the founding members of the European Green Party 20 years ago. Um, and as one of the founding members, but also as one of the members, essentially our candidate.
some 35 years ago.
Yes, well, you can also say
Okay,
40
because
years
yeah, the Green
ago.
Party, yeah, in Rome, yes, okay,
Different,
yes,
the
different phases of the Green
different
Party.
phases
Yeah,
according to the legislation on European political
yeah,
parties at the
that's it. Yeah,
time.
you're right. You're
In
right.
its current structure and format, it's been around
Yeah,
for
that's it.
20 years. Um, as members of as candidates for ADPD, the Green Party, and therefore as members of the European Green Party, if elected, we would automatically join the Green Group in the European Parliament, which in the last 5 years was the fourth or fifth biggest group that changed throughout the 5 years. Unfortunately, it seems like we will be losing some seats in some other countries, and therefore we would not manage necessarily to retain that fourth or fifth spot in terms of the size of the group. Why does this matter? The way discussions are held at the European Parliament is really according to the size of the group. So, the bigger the group, the more leads
Cloud.
they will have on different portfolios, on reports, the more time they will have, speaking time they will have in the Parliament itself. So, for instance, if you elect someone who is an independent candidate, they join the parliament as non affiliated. When you are non affiliated, you do not have the same budget that um, members of political groups have. You would not have the same strength to lead a report. In fact, you cannot lead a report. And you would be the last priority in terms of getting speaking time in the actual plenary. Um, Independent candidates, non affiliated politicians, once they are elected to the parliament, can negotiate their way into a group, but this can take time. Meaning that the main portfolios in a group have already been divided by those who were directly elected to the group. So, in the case of wanting and needing, indeed, a member of the Green Group that comes from Malta so that we can represent and present on the very specific cases for Malta, well, the best way to have that is to directly elect someone from ADPD. We would be able to hit the ground running. The fact that I've been working on EU level over the past 5 years means I have the contacts and the ability to negotiate as well good portfolios for us. So were Sandra to be elected, were Ralph to be elected, I would be able to help them negotiate good portfolios to have and to lead on that could really represent what our members and what our voters expect from us. So this is a great advantage, actually, to be a part of the European Green Party, to be an integral part with my role as a committee member of the European Greens, having contributed on their manifesto, for example, having contributed quite significantly to their campaign on a European level, and being in touch with candidates from other countries and understanding the struggles that they might be facing that are also similar to the ones that we face in Malta as a Green Party.
So, Melissa, you're more involved on a, let's say, on a local level.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
In Birzabuj, in your case,
Right.
we have 7 local council candidates this time around, including you on Birzabuja, myself, Ralph Gasser on Hattard. Al-Balzan will have a young guy, a student in political science, Samuel Vella, Wicked Kara, Mark Zerafa, Marcia Scala, Brian De Cerlis, and
Talpieta.
Talpieta, yes, Talpieta Guardamangia, Janet Zara Walker, and on St. Paul's Bay, we call it San Paulo Bahar, Sandra Gauci. Yeah, we would have liked much more candidates. It's difficult to find candidates in Malta because of various reasons. We also filter people. It's not just somebody coming along, and because they know how to, I don't know, take a selfie. They can be candidates. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle to find candidates. Melissa, can you explain the challenges which different localities face? But the main focus of our manifesto. So we'll start with the local council one and then go to the European manifesto as well. I have
Right.
here it is. Obviously, those seeing us online now, live, will not be able to read our manifesto online, but that's just to give you an idea of our manifesto. It focuses on the main issues for what we think are the main challenges for local councils. You can find the manifesto in English. In a moment, I'll change the ticker feed. The one showing right now is for the MEP elections. If you go to adpd.mt, there are banners at the top, and you can click on the banners. That's for the MEP elections, for the European Parliament elections. This one /Kunsill Lokali 2024 is for the local council elections. You don't have to remember that address. Just go to adpd.mt, and the top banner will scroll the top banner, and you'll find the local council page. So the main points. Melissa.
Okay, so basically we're looking at governance at a local level, and this governance will be based on the 6 major principles that are embraced by all Greens around the world, which are ecological wisdom, social justice and participatory democracy, non-violence, sustainability, and respect for diversity. Now, people may think immediately of being environmental friendly or pro-environment, and that's also important. That's probably the main thing ADPD is known for, or the Green Party in general. Okay, and it's good to know that, listen, this is not the only thing that we are known for. We also look into good governance. We look into financial responsibility, transparency, spending money wisely, cautiously, rather than doing so in a haphazard way. So financial responsibility is something I personally like because it's very important. This money is coming from our taxes, and I think that people have the right to know where their tax money is going. Um,
Yeah,
Even though maybe locally we tend to say tal-gvern, viva tal-gvern, eventually that money is our money. I'm sure most of us hardworking people are aware of our taxes being paid, and that's where it should go. It should go back into the community, okay? And that is something which is very important, okay? It's for us. It's not just something given to us by the government because the government is doing us a favor, like some kind of Santa Claus, okay? Like right now we see this checky it, but that's another issue altogether, okay? It's also
the
good. Mhm.
issue with local councils is that local councils are financed directly through a government grant,
Mhm.
uh, and so it's really challenging to finance well all the projects, necessities,
Well,
whatever, because
yeah.
the grants haven't gone up in line
No.
with inflation and whatever, in line with expectations. Another issue
Mhm.
which is pressing and which we will work on is challenging as well, but we must slowly but surely get there. The good administration of public land administered
Yes.
by councils, and also more street trees, more urban tree planting, done properly, uh, done properly and professionally. It is obvious that trees in urban areas are essential,
Mhm.
even because of climate change. So they help reduce heat, heat islands that they call them, no, uh, clean the air, reduce noise pollution, etc. I know it's a subject which is close to Axel's heart. We can say is mobility. Uh, in recent weeks, we have been talking about Brian DeCellis, our candidate Omar Saskala, for example, emphasizing accessible pavements and accessible streets. But we also talk about residential speed limits of 30 kilometers per hour and encouraging, even Samuel Vella in Halbalzan talks a lot about it, encouraging alternative mobility and clean mobility in our localities. I think Axel from the Netherlands maybe have a different perspective now about how important mobility, clean mobility, active mobility is.
Yeah.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts?
Yes. Well, one of the major reasons why I chose to come live in the Netherlands was mainly because of this. I wanted to experience what living only using a bike and sometimes the metro and public transport looks like in real life. And since obviously, unfortunately, we're not afforded that privilege in Malta, I had to look elsewhere. And ever since I moved here and I started using the bike to get around, I realized how peaceful life could be on a bike. Usually, when I was in Malta and I was trying to travel around, obviously I used my car just like everyone else, um, and I always remember how angry, how annoyed,
Frustrating, no? Yeah.
frustrated, all of these feelings come up when I think of a car, and being in a place where even the drivers respect you if there's an intersection, they are almost always the ones that stop. I barely even have to look because of where I grew up. I always look left and right before I cross any street because I just have this distrust of people in cars. Um, but in general, here you barely even have to do it. Um, and it's even going to work. It takes me 15 minutes to go to work, and I work roughly 5 kilometers away. And going by bike every day is extremely special. It wakes you up. It gives you lots of energy. If there's a fresh breeze, you can enjoy it. And if I cannot use my bike, for example, because there's heavy rain or a storm or something, the multitude of different types of mobility options that you have here in the Netherlands, I could go by bus, by metro. Obviously, you can go by car, but that actually is almost the longest route out of all of them because you have to exit to the ring road
Ring
and
roads,
then go
exactly.
back into. And here, what I always thought was a privilege in Malta that we had was the free parking around. In the Netherlands, it almost there barely is any free parking, only in like smaller villages. While if you go into the heart of a big city like Amsterdam, in our case, it would be more like Sliemagzira in this case. All of there are barely any parkings on the street, and you have to go to specifically designated zones, um, which are huge parking lots, and the prices are extremely, extremely
Yeah.
expensive.
So what we're saying is that we want to provide different options because it's in our interest at the end of the day to go green, even on mobility.
Yeah.
Uh, I will go through the rest of the program because we're tight with time. Uh, Obviously, we talk about pedestrianization, bike racks, increasing bike racks, uh, the issue with pavements being blocked and encroachment of public spaces, and we have a history of working on these issues. Open spaces in urban areas, real open spaces, not commercial spaces. And then obviously there's another aspect, a community aspect, free cycling, thrifting, which can also create a community around these aims and objectives, and aiming for zero waste. But also we will continue our work against the extension of building zones, and we insist that local councils should become more and more autonomous. Unfortunately, they have become a sort of customer care center for government. We are still a very centralized country here in Malta. It's in the interest of the big parties, in this case of the Labour Party, to keep control, and uh, we will continue to work against this penchant for centralization and control by government ministers. Well, for nepotistic reasons at the end of the day, for clientelist politics. Uh, then obviously the community aspect, working with local NGOs, uh, sports activities, and our guiding principle is the common good built on a sense of community. This manifesto, although it's a local manifesto, ties in very well with our European manifesto. Why? Because we apply the same principles on a European level, on a national level, and also on a local council level. The principles are the same. The principles are the same. Obviously, then some issues might be tackled at different levels. For example, climate change. If we're talking about climate change on a local level, and encouraging sustainable mobility is uh, an aspect of fighting climate change. On the European level, then there are targets, laws, and regulations for industry, etc., which are maybe not applicable to the policies devised by local councils. Mina will help me go through the European manifesto. We won't go through it in detail. Again, to access the version in English, there's a whole page, adpd.mt/mep-2024. You don't have to remember that, just adpd.mt. There's at the top. It's easy to find the MEP 2024, the European Parliament landing page.
Yes, and on the landing page, just to let people know, you can find everything we've been doing during this campaign. There's a list of debates that we
I
have
can display
attended.
it.
There is a list of opinion articles or articles that have been published in the press or that have been published on our own blogs when the press doesn't publish us. There are links to interviews we have done online or in the media. And what I find is perhaps the most important part, we also have a list of engagements with NGOs and civil society who reach out on a regular basis to discuss and talk with us. And where possible, we include more information on those. So, for example, Rota, the NGO that promotes cycling and advocates for better cycling infrastructure in Malta, invited us to a bike ride in Malta, and we indeed signed a declaration by them, the votebike.eu. And there you can see who has signed the pledge as well as who attended the bike ride, for example, with the MEPs. We had meetings with the MSPCA to discuss animal rights, a Vote for Animals pledge, and so on. So these are all details which might interest you, split into different areas of also reflecting our manifesto to show, well, we've been very busy during this campaign. We have had many opportunities to share. And finally, at the end, you get a little bit about us, our bios in English with links to our social media and where you can keep in touch with us. So it's been a very interesting campaign so far. Sometimes on debates, we actually get to discuss our manifesto and our vision
Yeah,
and our proposals for Europe. One of the proposals that has been actually rather well received is that of a 4-day work week. Another one that is being well received is about medicine procurement on a European level, which perhaps Ralph can talk about. Um,
yeah. The manifesto is uh, based on the European Green Party manifesto, but adapted for the Maltese context. But it's still green. It's still very green. In Maltese we say aħdar, now green, aħdar ta' veru, very green, true greens. Maybe you're seeing, yeah, well, the logo behind me here. It says Yiswilek. Yiswilek means
It's worthwhile.
it's worthwhile. Thank you. So we chose the slogan in Maltese. It's more colloquial, but yes, it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile to go green in this case. And Mina mentioned the 4-day week, but also the European Union level procurement of medicines, especially rare medicines. Since we're a small country, procurement of especially specialty medicines is quite a challenge because the pharma industry is, well, controlled by multinational companies, and small countries are not a priority. Selling part of a batch, part of a not even a few million tablets to one country isn't worth their while. That's why one of the proposals, which also comes through the European Greens, interestingly enough, because we might think that we are a small country, we're a micro country, but there are other small countries which also have this issue of procurement, so affordable healthcare and access to care. Obviously, from a green perspective, then it's not about getting the care when you get sick, but preventing the causes of diseases, and that's why the emphasis on going green, the emphasis on getting to zero waste, zero pollution, a totally circular economy as by 20. I can't remember now. I think it's 2040. Uh, the aim for zero waste from the green green the green perspective. Uh, Let me put the program on screen again. Remember, you can find it in that address there below, and I'll go through each headline, through each heading slowly. And any one of you wants to butt in, just do so. Don't worry. Okay. So the introduction. It's in your interest to go green. Obviously, the main challenge we're facing is protecting the climate. It's climate change and tying the move towards a well-being economy to this the green and social deal. We firmly believe that the transition should be financed by the big polluters. And that's the message of this first, let's call it, chapter, protecting the climate. The Mediterranean is warming up 20% faster than the rest of the world average, and in fact, we have already surpassed the 1.5 degree Celsius average temperature increase, and we can feel it year after year. It gets worse and worse. So we insist on moving quickly towards net zero emissions and seeing revenues from taxation, which force multinationals to move to clean transport, clean industry, uh, to see these funds financing social and economic and ecological transition, and also the necessary changes in agriculture and industrial sectors. We have no choice if we do not respect the limits that nature itself imposes on us. We will end up, well, badly. Another issue for Malta, clean and renewable energy. It makes economic sense. Obviously, it makes a social and environmental sense as well. We mention different from other parties. We mention uh, investment by communities in renewable energy. So renewable energy cooperatives and communities. We want all energy from renewable sources by 2040. We continue about the habitable planet. For example, this is a ban on private jets. Some might see it as symbolic, but it's not. Why? Because billionaires should not be exempt from their responsibilities to the rest of the community. You cannot tell people to change, to adapt, but let billionaires off the hook, so to speak. So the example has to come from those who are per capita, per person, polluting most. Let's remember as well that that money taxation on multinationals, on those who pollute, should go to a European social fund focusing on the adaptation to climate change. Well, clean energy and transport, we touched on it in our local council manifesto as well. Let's remember as well that it's our children who pay the price of pollution, as they are most susceptible to dirty fuels, and we are calling for a phase out of petrol and diesel engines. Around Europe, around 200,000 people die each year because of air pollution. There are hundreds of people, 100 and above, dying each year because of air pollution. Uh,
I think I would like to
yes,
also address that we talk about the European Pact on Migration and Asylum, which was recently voted in the European Parliament. In fact, they managed to slide it in the very end of the last term. Unfortunately, it's not fit actually as far as the pact goes. The European People's Party, the centre right, also known as the Christian Democrats, were really swayed by the far right and the right wing in terms of how to tackle the migration policy in Europe, and it allows for member states to just pay a fine if they choose to not host asylum seekers that have arrived at the border states. So, therefore, not all member states are shouldering their responsibility with regards to asylum. And additionally, it also pushes the procedure of monitoring and also processing asylum seekers' claims to third countries,
such
uh,
as Libya.
such as Libya, such as Tunisia, which do not respect human rights, and therefore this is creating a very dangerous situation, and putting people in spaces of violence, torture, and criminal abuse. So, additionally, we also mention as ATPD the agreed list of countries that are considered safe countries of origin for LGBTQI plus people. When we look at asylum seekers coming to Malta and claiming asylum based on their sexual orientation, there are still some countries in the list of so called safe countries in Malta that, in fact, actually criminalize LGBTQI people or same sex sexual behavior. This means that not accepting certain asylum cases would actually put people in a lot of harm if they were to be sent back to countries which would actually prosecute them or persecute them or even kill them for being LGBT. So it was very important to include this in our manifesto. It's also a claim coming from a number of NGOs in Malta, including the Malta Gay Rights Movement, the Malta LGBTQI Rights Movement, Aditus Foundation, Drachma, the Rainbow Family Network, that they are calling on Malta to ensure that the so-called safe countries list for LGBTQIA people is updated and truly reflects the political situation on the ground in a number of third countries. We see a lot of criminalization across Europe of NGOs and people, individuals who choose to help migrants at risk of dying, particularly at sea, in the Mediterranean, on the central Mediterranean route, which is where Malta is. And this is a practice that should stop, and where the European Union should really be making a clear stance. It is not criminal to save someone's life at sea. So, yes, this is one part that we have included in a section on equality and against violence, which I wanted to highlight.
We also have a whole section about agriculture. Although agriculture is not a big part of the Maltese economy, but it's very important. It's very important as regards 0 kilometer food. And we promote the concept of fresh food should go to the consumer closest to where it is grown and should have an advantage over, even when it comes to farming subsidies, over imported and processed foods. And a very important point is that there is no unfair competition from products that do not respect the same European standards. So provisos in international agreements, trade agreements, which protect genuine fresh food instead of having unfair competition from outside Malta, but also from outside the European Union. Most of the subsidies, 80% of agricultural subsidies go to multinationals, to the agro industry, not to, let's call them genuine, real farmers. So it's in our interest that subsidies guarantee social justice, even for those who grow food. So our farmers, those who care for the land, and what they need is technical and scientific support to stop this use of a chemical soup of pesticides, overproduction, unchecked pesticide use, which swallow up most of EU subsidies, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah. Also, animal welfare should be high on the funding agenda, let's say, when it comes to agriculture.
yeah. When we talk about agriculture, I also think about the green economy and what we call a well-being economy that respects the limits that nature imposes on us. It is necessary not only to look at unlimited growth and profits, right, for the few, but to actually have an economy that is based on well-being and understanding how the economy can contribute to improving the well-being of residents, of people living in Europe at the moment, and our quality of life This includes also ideas like the circular economy. So, for example, considering industrial waste as a design defect.
That's it.
Um, yeah, I think the
And this ties to plastic as well, as Melissa knows well because she works in the activism about on waste. But also, Melissa, yeah, you had mentioned in a press conference the lack of proper management of Natura 2000 sites, for example.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there were some billboards a few months ago about that, protecting and, maintaining these sites. And I wonder if we are living in a parallel universe. Okay, because if you had to come to the south and you check out the Natura 2000 sites, you'll say, what is being protected?
The cliffs are, are
Very,
supposed to be the
very
cliffs on
little.
the coast are supposed to be Natura 2000. No,
Yes, they are, but even the buffer zone, it's not really protected in that case. It's like no man's land here. You can dump whatever you like.
so this is a case of European law being ignored, basically. And we mentioned it in our
Yes,
program. Green MEPs will surely emphasize the need for not just protection on paper, but real and
we
professional
need
management.
enforcement, proper
Yeah, and
enforcement.
professional management of sites.
Yes,
Affordable housing.
that's true.
It's true. It's not a European competence as such. But Greens are pushing on a European level because it's an issue in many European uh, cities mostly. Uh, a decent roof over our heads is a right, not luxury, and funding for affordable housing, especially with this push and with European Union funding when it comes to the energy efficiency of buildings. Greens tie it to decent housing. Uh, so investment at EU level would also mean that the private market would have to compete with reasonable prices of public or part public schemes and projects on housing.
On this point,
Yes,
the what I don't understand is, for example, how cities have not piggybacked on the idea that Austria, mainly Vienna,
Vienna.
has
Yes,
has had on the social housing aspect, where Vienna, even though it is a big major city, just like every other European major city, the housing there is relatively extremely cheap compared to the other major cities, mainly because of the fact that I believe more than 50% of the housing in the city itself is owned by the
by the
municipality.
municipalities. Yes, that's it.
And
It's a historical reason, but it's a very interesting case study. Yes, very interesting.
yeah, and the quality of the housing is actually better from the studies that I've read than the private market housing. So people opt that they
Yeah, of
want
course.
it more than the private market.
The rule of thumb used to be that if you are spending more than 20% on rent uh, of your income, then you're in trouble, basically. You're not living decently, and you have issues. Uh, and if you look at the rental prices, but also the loan repayment prices uh, in Malta, uh, things have things have gone out of control.
I
It's
know
true that
investors
80% of
are
Maltese, let's say Maltese-born people, uh, own their own houses. It's also because of intergenerational, what do you call it? Help from your family, etc. But it's becoming more and more and more of an issue. And if we're not careful, uh, well, the problem is that successive governments, have incentivized property speculation. Instead of discouraging speculation, they have incentivized speculation with property prices far outstripping any uh, increase in wages, for example. And this is our one of our proposals as well. We have to change and stop this focus on speculation and the government subsidizing speculation, basically. Uh, to There are various other issues tackled. I mentioned the green economy and limits. So beyond growth, I mentioned zero pollution, and well, I mentioned the design defect, which is industrial waste, tackled as an industrial as a defect. The need to control plastics, especially the non-essential plastics, and
AI is something we haven't mentioned yet.
AI. Yes, that's
Yes.
it. I leave AI and maybe corruption as well to you, Mina.
Yes, in terms of AI, I think the Greens in the European Parliament, particularly Kim van Sparentak from the Netherlands, and she's thankfully running again as a candidate, has done a lot of work in this regard and following the files on AI, especially trying, to keep Europe at the pace at which the technology is developing. Unfortunately, laws in Europe take a long time to develop between the European Parliament and then the European Commission and the EU Council. So there are some things that have to happen much more quickly. And in fact, there were a number of parliamentarians from the Green Group in the European Parliament that were doing hours and hours of work, like 24-hour days almost, which I wish were not the case because that's not very healthy. But to get an AI Act kind of proposed as soon as possible. When it comes to AI, we have concerns that it can be used almost to monitor some workers' work. For example, platform workers, workers in the gig economy who might be delivering your food or working as a driver in a cab that you call from your phone, that rather than being managed by people and therefore having a humane aspect to the workforce and to the workplace, they would actually be managed by AI, creating a rather stressful and tense environment. There's also the idea of how AI is used in surveillance, for example, that because AI is developed by humans that are flawed in our subconscious bias towards people who are different to the majority, then the AI itself would have an inherent bias, for example, in monitoring applications for jobs, in also surveillance of communities. There have been cases in the US that have shown that these security cameras, which use sort of feature detections, can be rather racist towards Black communities. So these are all considerations that, on a European Union level, should be considered in terms of what technology are we allowing our cities, our countries to be using. Yes, AI is actually can be a fantastic tool as well to help workers speed up certain elements, certain repetitive elements of their jobs. We don't realize already how much AI we are using, for example, in predicative text or emails and writing emails, smart email writing, right? That can be very, very helpful. It can lead to sectors, especially in marketing, for example, where it's a very text based or image based as well, where workers will get less work. And so, what is important that if AI is helping companies have less work, the workers continue being paid the same, and profits should be redistributed between the workers. No company should be using AI as a reason to be getting rid of workers and laying off workers. So it is really fundamental to us that yes, let's have technology help us in creating work and making work easier for people, but let's not use it as an excuse to lay off workers. So if AI is supporting a company to maintain its profits with the same amount of workers, then why not consider a 4-day work week, right? There are ways and means in which we can use this technology to our advantage for the well-being of people rather than it becoming actually a fear for some, for example, copywriters in marketing, that they will no longer have a job because their specialization of skills would no longer be needed.
And finally, about corruption and transparency, we are calling for the deliberations documents in the European Council or European Council of Ministers uh, to be transparent and public. It's the European Union. You get the Commission, which proposes laws, directives, regulations. You've got parliament which votes, amends and votes, and on laws. That's quite transparent. And you get the Council of Ministers, which also votes and has to approve. And then you get these three tripartite dialogue to get to a common text. The deliberations and who's influencing who and who's presenting documents to the to the European Council, the Council of Ministers, is not public and is not transparent. And we are calling for transparency as regards corruption and ethics bodies. Unfortunately, the European People's Party, once again, so it's nationalists, the PN who are affiliated, blocked, for example, proposals to disallow, to ban MEPs from holding second jobs, so to prevent conflicts of interest, and also to have an independent ethics body for the European Parliament. The Greens are at the forefront of promoting and increasing transparency and ethical governance in the European Parliament, but also in the European Union. Finally, I think we've talked enough now. For us in Malta, and you as an EU citizen living in Malta who chose to vote in Malta, who made that choice to vote in Malta, the strongest way to show and to help us show that we need a change, in the way politics is done in Malta, is to vote Green, to vote AD+PD for candidates in any order you like, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can choose to cross vote to other parties if you choose to. That's up to you. But the real message in voting number one for at least one of us, one of the Green candidates for the European Parliament. Also, those of you who live in Attard, Abuja, Balzan, Birkirkara, St. Paul's Bay, Marsa Scala, and Talpieta, Guardamanja, we have local council candidates there as well to continue pushing our green priorities. Remember, the other parties in Malta are quite conservative, are, what do we say, Melissa? Navel gazing. They're
Navel gazing. You're right.
so the progressive choice, the European choice, the green choice is AD+PD, both at a European level and also at a local level. We do, yes, most of our political narrative now in Maltese. It's easier for most of us, and it's more expressive for us. That's why we decided to have this broadcast in English. But on our website, adpd.mt, even if you want to look at press releases, at press statements, 99% of them are both in English and Maltese. Some documents are in Maltese only, but then you'll have the press release, which has a summary in English. But our programs, our European and even local council programs, are in both English and Maltese. Even the leaflet some candidates for the local councils distributed in households, at least a part of the leaflet is in English. I don't know if Axel, your final sentence. Vote Green because
Vote Green because we're the new socialists.
because we're really green. That's why.
Thank you, everyone.
Melissa. Okay. No further comments, Melissa.
That's okay. No, it's okay. I was just preparing to say bye, okay, because we're wrapping up. But it's important to vote Green because it's in our interest, to put people and the planet above any other concerns, because at the end of the day, there's only one planet and there's no planet B, as they say, so we have to take care of what we have. Okay.
Let's remember that Malta is directly affected by climate change.
Definitely.
Directly.
We can feel it now. Even my cats feel it.
Yeah, that's it.
At home.
Mina?
vote green in the European Parliament so that you can have someone from Malta directly within the Green Group in the European Parliament helping to influence some of the most progressive policies and ideas that we see at the European level.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who followed us live. And this broadcast will remain on Facebook and YouTube for everyone to be able to go through and see. Should you want to contact us, there are through Facebook, and there are contact details all over the website, basically. Thank you very much, and good night.
Okay.
Ciao, ciao.